Hey guys, today we are going to look at percent proportions and equations. So that's going to be page 6 and 7. Remember, you are writing it on a piece of paper. So just copy it down, make sure it's neat, make sure that you can read your own handwriting and that you're writing all of it. This is what counts as your class time, and then your assignment for the day counts as your homework. So that's how this is working. So if it takes you a little bit to do, that's okay. It's going to take time, okay? But today we are going to look at percent proportions and equations. So yesterday we looked at converting. We looked at how to convert a fraction to a decimal to a percent. So if you think back to that or look back at your notes, you can always take a fraction and change it to a decimal by dividing top and bottom out, the numerator divided by the denominator. Then you can take your decimal and you can change it to a percent. And you do that by multiplying by 100. In the same form or fashion, you can go from a percent to a decimal by doing the opposite, and the opposite is dividing by 100. So percent to a decimal, percent to decimal, divide by 100. And then you go from a percent back to a fraction, or to a fraction by taking your percent. Whatever that percent is, you put it over 100 because percent means part per 100. So the whole is 100, okay? So in this case, it would be 40 over 100, and then I just simplified it down, okay? So super quick review. And then we found percent of a number by taking that percent. We changed it to a decimal by dividing it by 100. And then we multiplied it by the whole. So in this case, 80 was the whole. So 4/10 or 40 hundredths times 80 equaled 32. And you did that with all of these. You found a part of a number. So today we are going to look at using, again, the equations, which is what we did on page 5. And then also I'm going to show you how to set up a percent proportion if you want to solve it that way. So percent proportions are helpful because they can help you find any missing piece. With the equation, you can only do that when you're looking for a part. So when you're looking for the part, you can use the equation. You're looking for a part of a number. However, if you're looking for anything else, you're going to want to set up a proportion. So a proportion is just two equivalent fractions. They're set equal to each other because they mean the same thing. So this is equal to this. So if you remember, with percents, percent means part per 100, and 100 was the whole thing. I talked about in class, my whole class would be 100% of the class, whether that was 25 students or 30 students. The whole thing would equal 100%. So the whole always equals 100%, and then the part will always equal a different percent. So it is a part to whole relationship. And then a lot of times if you have problems like this with words, some people like doing is over of because it kind of tells you where those numbers go. That'll make more sense in just a moment. But you are copying this down. Remember, if you can't see it super well on your computer, you can always look at that live binder. But the video with my teaching hopefully helps at least with understanding and helps you a little bit. So a couple things that I want you to add on equations. You use an equation if you are missing the part. And by part, I mean part of a number. For example, what is 70% of 8? You have the whole. The whole here is 8, so you're looking for the part. You're looking for what is 70% of 8. You're looking for that part. So if you're missing the part, use an equation. Equations are just faster, however, they just might not always be the best way for us to find our answer. So on the first one, we have 70% of 80. So we are looking for the part. The part is what we don't know. And then we know that the whole is 8, okay? So when we have this situation, again, remember you're writing down all of this, so you're also writing what's typed. The part's what we don't know, but we know that we are looking for 70% of that. And if you remember yesterday, we said you can change a percent to a decimal by dividing by 100. All right, and so that is what we are going to do here. First, we're going to set up an equation. Equation, just a math problem with an equal sign. So 70% as a decimal is 0. Well, I'll show you. 70 divided by 100 is going to be 7/10 or 70/100. So I'm going to take 7/10 and I'm going to multiply it by 8. And up here tells you the part equals the percent written as a decimal multiplied by the whole. And that's what we did here. We took our percent as a decimal, we multiplied it by the whole. So when you do that, 0 and 7/10 times 8, that equals 5 6/10. So 5 6/10 is 70% of 8. And that would be our answer. So that's how we solve with an equation. We can also solve using a proportion. So we're going to use a percent proportion. So again, we don't know what our part is, but we do know the whole thing. So if we look here, we have a part to whole relationship. If you look up here on your notes, it reminds you. And that's what we're going to plug in, okay? So we know that the whole thing is equal to 100%. It's always going to be equal to 100%, whatever the whole is. And then the part goes on the numerator, okay? So if we look back at our problem, the whole is 8. We already said that here. So I'm going to plug it in here. And we don't know the part. That's the mystery. Kind of like the unknown. In elementary school, you see it as a box. And then it's asking what is 70%. So how this is set up is it says 8 equals 100%. So then something equals 70%. We're going to figure out what that 70% is. Now in math, in 7th grade, in any grade really, you might see this as a missing box in elementary. Then you might see it as a question mark. Well, now we're old enough that we can use variables. You used variables a little bit last year. So x is our unknown. That is what we are not sure of. So here we're going to set up an equation and we're going to solve. So the first thing we're going to do is set up the equation, okay? So if we do that, you're going to multiply crisscross. Now this is not the butterfly method or whatever you've heard before. This is solving for a proportion. So we're going to do 100 times x. That's going to be 100x because we don't know what that is. And remember, a number and a letter right next to each other mean to multiply. And that's equal to 70 times 8. And when you do 70 times 8, that's going to be 560 because it's 7 times 8 with a 0. Okay? So now here we've set up an equation and we need to solve it. So we need to get x by itself because we're looking for this. We're trying to figure out this number. We're looking for that part. That's what we don't know. So here, this is multiplying. So the opposite of multiplying is dividing. Because remember, we use opposites a lot in math. So we're going to divide by 100 so that we can cancel this 100 out. And whatever we do on one side, we must do it on the other. So when we divide on both sides. This cancels. So we're left with x equals 560 divided by 100. And when you do that, you get 5 and 6/10. And that's our part. That's what we're missing. And that's what we got over here. So obviously this equation is much faster, but I did want you to see how to set up a proportion, because on the rest of these we're going to use proportions because we're not missing a part, we're missing something else. And once you can set up proportions correctly and solve them, it does help you get the right answer, okay? So on the next one, it says 57 is what percent of 30? So you have to think about what we know here. We know that we are looking for a percent because it says is what percent. So we're not missing the part here. It actually gives us the part. In this case, the part is bigger than the whole, and that's perfectly okay. That is allowed. So the part equals 57. And then the whole thing in this situation is 30. And another way you can know it's 30, it's because it says of 30. And up here, it shows you that of equals 100%, okay? Of is the whole. Those are the same things, okay? So the whole is 30. And we are looking for
Ms. Sandridge, please call the office.
the percent part. That's what we don't know. And obviously we know that the whole percent is 100. Okay? So take your time, set these up so you can get the right answer. Alright, so we have part to the whole. And let's plug in so we can solve our proportions. So the part is 57. The whole is 30. And since the whole is 30, that's going to be equal to 100%. And then what we're missing is the part percent. That's the unknown. That's what we are unsure of. So we're going to mark that with an X. And then to solve, we're going to do cross products. And so if we look here, 30 times X is 30X. Remember, we're going to set up an equation. And then 57 times 100 is 5,700. And remember, you get calculators on these lessons. So now we're going to solve for X. We need X by itself. So right here it's being multiplied, and the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So we're going to divide. And if you divide on one side, you have to divide on the other. So here it cancels, and I'm left with X equals, and then I'm going to divide 5,700 divided by 30. And when I do that, I get 190. And if you think about what we were solving for, we were solving for the part percent. So our answer is going to have a percent sign. So we have figured out that 57 is 190% of 30. So I'm going to write that over here. 57 is 190% of 30. And this makes sense because 57 is greater than 30. And so our answer should be more than 100%. Alright, so the next one says 12 is 8% of what number? So think about what we know. We have our part, the whole, the part percent, and then the whole percent. Well, we know the whole percent is 100% because it always is. And then it says the other percent, it gives us that part percent is 8. And then it says 12 is 8% of what number? So again, if you remember the word of, that is equal to the whole thing. So whole of 100%, all of those things belong in the denominator. So in this situation, we're missing the whole. That's what we don't know. That's our mystery. And then the part it gives us is 12. So using our numbers that we've now figured out, we have part to whole, and we're going to set up our proportion. So the whole percent is 100%, the part percent is 8%. Your percents are always going to go on the same fraction together. The part is 12, and then this time what we don't know is the whole. That's the unknown. We'll go Christmas colors. So now we're going to look for this whole. We're going to figure out what it is, and we're going to do that by solving with cross products. So here 8 times x is 8x, and we're going to set that equal to 12 multiplied by 100, and 12 times 100 is 1,200. Okay, and now we're going to get x by itself. So the opposite of multiplying is dividing, and whatever we do on one side, we must do on the other. So now I have x equals, I'm going to do 1,200 divided by 8, and then I'm going to get 150. So in this situation, it says 12 is 8% of 150. And that's going to be our final answer. We looked and we found the whole. Now, one way you could check this is you could find 8% of 150 and see if your answer is 12. And if you do that, then you know that you got the right answer. So if we take 8%, divide it by 100 to change it to a decimal. So we have 0.08. And we're going to multiply that by 150. And we get 12. So we know that we got it right. Now, if this is confusing, just remember, this is our first day doing this, and we will continue to practice a whole lot, okay? So, we are going to now, we're done with page 6, so now we're going to do page 7. We're continuing with the same idea, but we are going to look at it with word problems, because sometimes even though word problems seem like they're more challenging, it might help us make more sense of what's going on, okay? So, like always, we're going to list out part, the whole, the part percent, and then the whole percent, because it just helps us set up our proportions correct. Again, like always, the whole percent is 100%. So here it says Kyle got 30 questions correct out of 35 total questions. What was the percentage that he got correct? So we're looking for the percentage. That's what we don't know. And it does give us the part and the whole for this situation. So the whole test had 35 questions. And the part he got correct was 30 questions. So now we can set up our proportion. Part over whole. And then remember our percent goes over here. So the part is 30. The whole is 35. The part percent is what we don't know. That's what we're looking for. So that's going to be our x. And then the whole percent is 100. All right, so now we're going to do cross products to solve. And again, when you do this, you're setting up an equation, and then you can solve for x. So 35 times x is 35x. And then you have 30 times 100, and 30 times 100, you're adding those zeros. It's going to be 3,000. And now you can solve to get x by itself. So this is multiplying. The opposite of multiplying is dividing. And whatever you do on one side, you must do on the other. So x equals 3,000 divided by 35. And when you do that, we get our answer. Now, this is like a real life problem, so it's not going to be perfect, but we can round. So it's going to be 85 0.71 is the hundredths place. And so then you are going to think about, okay, this is a grade, so the teacher's probably going to round up. So this is going to equal 86% would be his grade on the test. So here, I would just say, what's the percentage he got correct? Kyle got 86% of the questions correct. All right, then the next one, the 7th grade class held an end-of-year dance. Out of the 300 7th graders, 246 decided to attend. What percent of the 7th grade class attended the end-of-year dance? So we have part, we have the whole, the part percent, and the whole percent. And here it gives you the part and the whole. And then we're looking for the percent. Again, that's what we don't know. And you know the whole thing is 100%. Now, if this is making sense to you and you can just finish it without watching the video, you are more than welcome to stop now. Otherwise, I'm going to work this one out and then let you do the rest, okay? But if you're good, you're understanding, you can click off this video and just do it faster by yourself. But if you want to keep watching, you can. So we're looking for the percent here. And then we can look, of the 300 7th graders, 246 decided to attend. So the whole is 300, and the part is 246. So we can set up our proportion. The part to whole, so 246 over the whole, which is 300. You're looking for the percent. That's what we don't know. And we know that the whole percent is 100% because that's how it goes. We're going to do cross products to solve. And 300 times x is 300x. And that equals 246 times 100. So you have 24,600. And you solve by dividing because you want to get x by itself and it's being multiplied. And you do the opposite. So the opposite of multiplication is division. And remember, this bar means to divide. Whatever you do on one side, you must do on the other. And so you get x equals, and you're going to do 24,600 divided by 300, and you get 82. And it says what percent, so it's going to be 82% attended the dance. All right, now this is not the only way you can solve this. Some of you are probably thinking you could have set up your fraction, which would be 246 over 300. You could divide it to change it to a decimal, and then take your decimal, multiply by 100 to change it to a percent, and that would get you the correct answer, and you are right. That is one way to do it. So there's lots of ways to solve. This is just one way, and some people will really end up liking it, okay? So I'm going to finish working out these two problems. I'll post it on the live binder so that you can see them worked out and you can check your answers. Remember that you're copying this down, and this class counts as your math class for today. And then on your homework tonight, your notebook page 5 will help you. You can solve with the proportion, and then but also you could solve the way we did on page 5, okay? So have a good day, and I'll see you soon.